My name's Amber. I am the eldest daughter of Robert Goss, and if you're watching this video, it's probably because you know him. Since I'm making this video for people he knows. I am a master's student at the University of Victoria in applied linguistics, and I want to work in the realm of language revitalization. But nobody knows what applied linguistics is outside of academia.
So we'll start with the basics. It's part of linguistics. Linguistics is the scientific study of language. And of course, a lot of linguists have been working on language revitalization based on conversations I've had. I'm pretty sure the most likely specialties of the many that are contained within linguistics that you may have encountered are documentary linguistics and theoretical linguistics. So I'll explain those very briefly so you can compare, and then I will attempt to make sense of applied linguistics for you. So here we go. Documentary linguistics is about making records of world languages and how they're used. It's interdisciplinary, meaning it uses theory and methods from a lot of different fields, basically whatever they need from wherever it comes from. So they draw from theoretical linguistics, ethnography, psychology, and so on and so forth. And the goal of the documentary linguist is to create a good corpus. And a corpus is the sets of text that provide data, both for analysis and also for creating curriculum. So what is a good corpus? It's diverse in source and environment, meaning who it's coming from and where it's being used, the context. It's large because a small one does not give enough data for analysis or to create materials. It is never finished. You are constantly adding to a corpus in order to make sure it's a good corpus. And modern documentary linguists are very much about making sure that it's ethically created. So that's documentary. Next up is theoretical, which I'm going to scan through really quick. This is a very technical definition, which you can pause and read if you like. But it's basically trying to answer what is language at its fundamental foundation and how does it work in the brain. So linguists create models and theories about how human language works, not just like individual languages, though there can be focuses, but just language. And it contains a number of subfields, including phonology, which is about the sound systems of a language, the patterns of sounds that are allowed to go together, morphology, words and what is a word and how is it formed, and syntax, what is a sentence and how is a sentence created. So that's the basic. So what about applied? Well, according to this introduction to applied linguistics I found, it's a field of linguistics which has a goal of creating practical solutions to real-world problems, which covers a lot of ground. It can be anything from translation and interpretation, as this list shows, assessment and evaluation, language and technology. There's a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a few applied linguistic studies that have been done to give an idea of how it can be used in the context of language revitalization. So here we go. So this one of my classmates helped me find, and it was looking at a program in New Mexico with Navajo at a school where 50% of the population was Navajo. So this study provided info on the program. It was a 4-year federally funded demonstration program, kind of like proof of concept. And the program included ESL classes and classes on Navajo language and culture as part of the daily grind. Like, it's just a daily class. The case study looked at how successful it was according to the goals of the program. And it was very successful. Students showed increased school involvement and improved reading, math, and science scores on standardized tests. So this isn't just applicable to language, but overall success. The study provided recommendations and resources for people to go look up more information on their own. One of uh, just for how teachers can create programs like this and so on, and went on to show summary and results. So after the 4-year program, when they were no longer federally funded, they kept going, and they even added additionally a Navajo government class, which a lot of the non-Navajo students signed up for. So it's continued to be successful. It's even expanded outside of its original classes. So that's an example of an applied linguistics study that's doing a case study on an existing program. So next up, another thing that applied linguists do is they examine environment and its influences. So in this article I found, it was talking about how learning spaces are constructed. So it's looking at classroom and outside classroom speech. So it describes interactions. So again, when students stand up or interact with a teacher or other students to contribute to learning, it describes how they're carried out in both contexts, and it shows the differences in how learning is different in two contexts. I know that sounds weird, but it's not just showing the differences in the two contexts, but how learning is different in both contexts. And it discusses decontextualization of language in the classroom and how it affects language learners, because the classroom is not the real world, and that can affect how a student acquires language and how they later use it. So that's one thing that applied linguists do, examine learning environment. They also look at obstacles to learning, which can overlap with the other, but in the instance of this paper I found, they were looking at changes in foreign language anxiety, because previous studies had shown that anxiety impacted student language use and learning. So they decided to look at how anxiety changed over the course of a term, even over the course of a single lesson or sequence of lessons, and what might be the cause of changes in anxiety. So it examined them, keeping in mind that sometimes it's hard to tell. This was a first study, so they wanted to encourage further research. But they found that if teachers gave students an incredibly explicit course outline, the students experienced slightly less language anxiety because they knew what the expectations were. So that's a type of study looking at why here's this thing that we know is a challenge. How can we work on that? And also, can we keep studying this, find other solutions? So that's another example. So applied linguistics research, and this time I'm kind of switching back to like my thesis. It can be used to discover what a community's needs are. It can be used to look at instruction methods in existing classrooms to discover what the most effective method might be in a given context. So if you have 5 schools, is one teacher using a different method than another teacher? Can we look at both the teachers and see if they're meeting the standards that they have? It can study how grammar is taught and find possible new approaches. There's been research on implicit versus explicit instruction. Like, do you give them a list of rules, or do you have more examples and they just learn organically and intuitively? That sort of thing. Can look at barriers and learning pronunciation, again, like the anxiety one, and reluctance to speak, and many, many other things. So that's where we come up to the roadblock, because I can't just decide this is what I'm going to do, because it doesn't make sense. Because
it's your language, it's your classrooms, it's your schools. You know where the need lies. You know what the priority is. Now, keep in mind, for a master's, I'm limited in what I can do, but whatever I do is not gonna be for me. I mean, it's gonna be fun for me. It's gonna be useful. I'm gonna be able to do something where I can see a positive effect. So, hey, it's not like I'm not getting benefit out of it, but it needs to be something that you can actually use. And so that's why I'm trying to explain what applied linguistics is. That's why I'm trying to network and figure out what you need so that I can figure out a way to best use my time to be as helpful as I can. So, yeah, I am awkward and don't know how to close videos because I don't usually make them. So, bye.